Welcome to JazzTalk, a program from the Center for the Performing Arts. I'm Julia Schulmeyer, and I'm the Director of Education and Community Engagement at the Center. Now, before we start today's program, I'd like to tell you a little bit about the Center. I know we have people joining us not only from Indiana, but California, Michigan, Ohio. So I'm going to guess maybe you've not had a chance to come visit us in person. We're located just north of Indianapolis, Indiana, in the beautiful city of Carmel. We actually have three venues on our campus. We have the Palladium, which is our beautiful concert hall. That's where Sammy Miller will be performing in April. And then across the green space, we have another building that has two more theaters in it. The Tarkington, which is a 500-seat proscenium arch theater, and the Studio, which is a small black box theater that's really fun to do performances in. Besides our three venues, we have 6 resident companies, 2 dance, 2 orchestras, and 2 theater companies. Besides the resident companies, we host performers and musical groups, performances from all over the world in multiple genres. So we really hope if you haven't visited us in Carmel, that you get to the center very soon for a performance. Today, we know you're going to have lots of questions. Sammy and Todd are amazing jazz musicians, and we hope you don't wait to post those questions. We'll get to those at the end of the conversation, but once they come in your head, go ahead and put those in the Q&A feature if you're joining us on Vimeo. There's also a chat, but feel free to use that Q&A feature. If you're on Facebook, just post it in the comments and we'll come to those at the end. So get those questions ready because we're going to save plenty of time for those. Now, I want to tell you about our special guests tonight. Dr. Todd Williams is our host, and he hails from among the finest woodwind artists in today's music scene. He is a sought-after saxophonist, clarinetist, flautist, and clinician. He is currently the assistant professor of music education at Indiana Wesleyan University, where he serves as the instructor of the jazz ensemble and jazz combo. Todd has appeared as a guest lecturer and conductor for the Juilliard Jazz Orchestra, and he earned his doctoral degree in music education at Indiana University's Jacobs School of Music. Originally known for his saxophone and clarinet work with Wynton Marsalis's septet, quintet, and Jazz at Lincoln Center Orchestra. Todd has been honored with such positions as assistant professor at Queens College in New York City and music director of Times Square Church, where he has written a wide variety of contemporary gospel choral works. Todd has performed at just about every prestigious venue in the U.S., multiple performances at the White House to Carnegie Hall to Hollywood Bowl, and he has been featured artist in Europe, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Africa, Canada, Mexico, and South America. Extensive recording with Wynton Marsalis decorates his list of accomplishments, as well as guest appearances with such artists as Sir Roland Hanna, Harry Connick Jr., John Hendricks, Scotty Barnett, Terrell Stafford, John Faddis, Jeff Hamilton, Marcus Roberts, and Michael Mossman. The Newport Symphony Orchestra, the Marion Philharmonic Orchestra, Darren Atwater, Slide Hampton, and Grammy Award winner Christian McBride. Todd is also a 4-time recipient of ASCAP's Plus Award for Composers, and his latest jazz recording, Introducing Quartet Trio, is available on all streaming platforms. So Todd is our host. Now our special guest tonight is Sammy Miller. He's a native of Los Angeles, and he's Grammy-nominated. He's become known for his unique maturity and relentless focus on making music that feels good as a drummer, singer, and band leader. Upon completing his master's at the Juilliard School, Sammy formed his ensemble, The Congregation. The band is on a mission to put the generosity back into jazz and bring art back to the people. Led by Miller, the 7-piece group is a community of adventurous and charismatic musicians who are conservatory-trained but have not lost their childlike wonder and awe for playing music. Since its inception, the congregation has played nonstop around the world, including Lincoln Center, the White House, the Newport and Monterey Jazz Festivals. From Lincoln Center to the White House, the Newport Jazz Festival to the Umbria Jazz, the wide-ranging special guests Wynton Marsalis and Bill Irwin. The congregation has brought a new perspective to jazz and new generation of listeners. In addition to touring with One Republic, one of my favorite groups, Mavis Staples and the Blind Boys of Alabama, the congregation has dedicated countless hours to working with over 60,000 students across the world using their groundbreaking playbook platform. And we are thrilled to welcome Sammy to the Palladium for a performance on April 19th. And not only is he doing a performance for the public at 8 p.m., he's doing a matinee for schools, which will be free for schools to attend. So Sammy and Todd, please join me, and we'll get this program started. Hi, guys. Welcome. I'm going to go backstage and let you guys get on with the conversation. And then once you're done with that, remember, everybody who's joining us, if you're on Facebook, post those questions in the comments. If you're joining us here on Vimeo, just put them in the Q&A or the chat. So Todd and Sammy, have at it.
Thank you.
All right, Julia, thanks so much. Sammy.
Hello.
Hey, man. So glad to have you on the show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And we are delighted, looking forward to your show on April 19th, Friday, April 19th, here at the Palladium in Carmel, Indiana. Well, let's just start right at the top and just jump right in, man. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your coming about? You came from LA. I did a little reading on you. You came from LA. You played music with your family, kind of had a musical background. Tell us a little bit about yourself in that regard.
Well, thank you so much for having me on the show, Todd. Big fan. We never met in person, but I'm such a fan of you as a performer and just the breadth of your education too. It's incredible. So I've been listening to Todd. I've actually been playing along with Todd for years. He doesn't know it because I was always just have my headphones on as a 13-year-old kid trying to play along with records, keep up with them.
Oh, wow.
But so I'm one of five. I grew up since I was 5 years old. I have four siblings, and we grew up playing songs together. So I started drums when I was 5 years old. I got a sister on the guitar, sister on the piano, a brother who played the bass, and that's what we would do after school. We weren't good at sports. I thought I was good at sports, but when it became apparent I wasn't any good, that's what we did after school. We'd get together and we would learn songs by ears. We'd listen to records and try to, mostly at that time, I was learning rock and roll songs. Then at a certain point, my older brother brought home some jazz records, and that was it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people have had that kind of experience, but he brought home some records, and I had no idea what was going on, and I loved how it made me feel.
Wow. So tell me something. Were those LPs? Were those CDs? What were those records?
I should be specific here. CDs. So my brother, he started bringing home CDs, but his collection was not didn't match my hunger. So I mostly went to the local library, and I would just check out. You could check out 30 CDs at a time. So I just said A's, B's, C's.
Oh yeah.
D's. And then I got to Ron Carter. My public library had Ron Carter galore, so I probably learned to listen to more Ron Carter than anything else growing up, actually. So.
Oh wow, that is really cool, man. Well, the name of the group, the congregation, suggests that you have a following. And tell us a little bit about the people in your band. I mean, I know Alfonso Horn, and I don't really know everybody else in the group. Tell us a little bit about the people in your group.
Sure. So Alfonso Horn, you mentioned, trumpet player. The band started when I was finishing up at the Juilliard School, and I think a big thing that we were interested in, and I was specifically interested in, was how to present jazz in a way for people who had never heard the art form. I think thinking a lot about just the nature of the gigs we were playing in New York City. It was often in bars downtown or in Brooklyn, and they weren't an audience that was seasoned. They knew how to listen to it. They may be people in my generation don't necessarily have a positive connotation with the word jazz. They think
Oh yeah.
generation's music. And so not only do I have to play great music, but we have to think about how we can present it in a way that connects to people and turns them, like, we're the gateway drug for jazz. That's gateway. It's like, hey, I want to turn people on to this thing. And that was really the motivation there. So we started playing a lot in Brooklyn at a bar called The Woods. And then we were playing a lot at Jazz Lincoln Center in the late night dance parties. I don't know if you were ever at those.
I knew what they were, though. Yeah, for sure.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So Alfonso Horn, a trumpet player from Jacksonville, Florida. And then out from California, Ben Flocks, incredible tenor saxophonist who I've been playing with since I was 16 years old. On the guitar is my sister, Molly Miller, Dr. Molly Miller. She, like you, has her PhD. On the upright bass, Corbin Jones from Los Angeles. And then on the piano, we have from Indianapolis, Indiana. That's David Leinard.
Okay. Woo! That is very cool. Okay. So you guys kind of met sort of through Juilliard, sort of at home with your sister, sort of sort of a mixed bag of people. And then, like, would you say that your band has a message, or is it, hey, let's just enjoy this? Like, how do you see that?
Oh no, I would, everything I do, I would say is definitely mission driven. And in this case, I'm interested in making people's life, like their experience on earth, a little lighter, bringing joy. And that's where that word congregation comes from. It's just about, I think life is so challenging. And so I think about what music did for me as someone growing up and its power to uplift other people. And so I would say that's our goal when we play. And when we do education work, it's in a very similar vein. It's about not just making people feel good, but maybe inspiring people to have the tools to uplift themselves the way, our music can uplift others.
That's right. You know what's funny? So in your bio, I believe Julia said that you play with Mavis Staples. Is that true? Is that what I heard, or did I not hear that?
No, we did some tour. We spent some time opening up for Mavis. We spent a winter. We did a run with her.
Okay. The reason I say that is because I remember as a kid playing on the playground in my elementary school years. And there's this kid who came up to me and said, "Oh yeah, my family, we got a music team in our family. We have a band and we have this and we have that. And they're called the Staple Singers." And I remember this as a kid. I was like, wow, this kid lived maybe a few blocks from my house. Wow. And I knew her and her brother really well. And she's like, yeah, we have a singing group, And it wasn't until I was an adult, and they were talking about the Staple Singers. And of course, Mavis is one of those singers, And I was thinking, wow, what a small world, And of course, Mavis, she brings lots of joy, to the stage, and the fact that you guys got to play with her, I think that's just fantastic. She's she's like one of those connecting people in the music field that, like, of all the things that happen in American music, the Staple Singers, they were like really key to gospel music. And so I thought, wow, that's an amazing thing, Yeah.
I mean, the artist. So I feel like the people that have always motivated me most are the ones like furthest away generationally. And from those people, like Mavis is a great example, where if you get some time, you spend some time with them, you see their motivations and how mission focused they are, or how much they've thought about what they do. And I guess those are the people that I gravitated towards.
Oh yeah. By the way, I just want to say to our listeners, if you think of any questions as we're going along, now would be a good time to type those in the Q&A section. Just type that little button on your right side of your screen, and add those questions, because at the end of the chat, at the end of our conversation, we're going to visit those questions. But anyway, for my next question, I would say, like, as an artist, you look out in the audience, and most people who have a band, if they've been on the road for any length of time, you can kind of tell who's in your audience, and you can kind of tell, like, okay, I should call this tune next, because they need an up tempo tune now. They need a ballad now. And so when you look out in your audiences, who's out there? Hopefully, lots and lots and lots of people.
Yeah, Julia brought it up. I mean, we've always made an effort to be for anyone. I always wanted to be a show that kids my age, or like hipster kids in Brooklyn's, could bring their grandparents, or grandparents who like Hoagie Carmichael could bring their grandchildren to an education show. I mean, I really want to make things that you can access it at a whole bunch of different levels. So in the case of Indianapolis, or Carmel, my dad was actually born in Indianapolis, so you'll probably have some of my some of my uncles, dad's cousins, and but hopefully some other people too. We have a great time in Indianapolis. A lot of over the years, we spent a lot of years. We played at the Jazz Kitchen. We've always had great audiences there. So hopefully some of those people, and then perhaps some new faces here.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you'll see some new faces there.
But sorry, I just want to jump on that though, to the question of I try to play or program in a way for there's something for everybody. Someone who's a seasoned jazz lover, and then some people who maybe need something they never heard this form before.
Yeah. That's the funniest thing, that you can actually kind of tell when you're playing in front of an audience. You can tell if they're responding to it or not, and you can actually sort of gauge the program and kind of lead to the next thing. I noticed about your music that it derives from a lot of different genres of jazz. Like jazz, there's all sorts, there's bebop, there's swing, there's early New Orleans, there's like a lot of different sort of genres in that. Which is fantastic, I think, because I just love all of it. I love the old stuff. I love the modern stuff, and I'm sure you do too. So, but my question is, especially for our listening audience, what, like, people in your band, what do they need to know how to do? Like, my guess is that you probably couldn't just hire anybody,
That's a great question. No, not at all. First of all is their values. I think that's the first thing of the people I hire. They have to want to play for anyone. And they have to, first, we don't use sheet music as an ensemble. That's been one of the principles since the beginning. And that was a lot. It makes it harder to have subs, obviously, but
right.
But what it does is I almost liked the jazz musicians. Like, there's not as many bands as you've been a part of bands before, which are always the music that I think we connect to most are bands. And I thought, in order for us to be a band, a couple things. One would be starting to feel it in our body and not be tied to the page. So that's something that they have to do is learn it by ear. There's definitely a comedic element to what we do, and there's humor involved. So that doesn't mean that you have to be a hilarious stand-up comedian to be in the band, but you have to be flexible enough and improvisatory in that way as well at times.
Yeah.
And that's a lot from, you talked about spanning a lot of different musics. I'm really such a nerd for early New Orleans music and just the first generation of jazz performers who were such dynamic, credible virtuosos on the instrument, but then incredible performers, incredible entertainers. And those are a lot of the people I draw inspiration from.
Oh, yeah. Tell the audience what you like about Jelly Roll Morton?
We actually play some Jelly Roll songs. I like people who are conflict, who don't mind conflict. I like people who. No, I mean, first of all, his arrangements, that his early ensemble arrangements are I mean, other than Duke Ellington in that era in the 20s, I think they're probably the hippest. But I like that he put himself at the center of the universe. I think he's a great storyteller. You talk about things outside the instrument. If you listen to those Library of Congress recordings,
Yeah,
I think he's an incredible. He's funny too. I mean,
that's right. That's right. That's right. I always notice that in his recordings, the use of dialogue and sound effects, it really creates a picture of early New Orleans life. Maybe speak on that a little bit.
About him, just
like Sidewalk Blues or anything like that. You remember those tunes like that?
Yeah. I think that it's interesting you bring up one of the things around. So obviously I'm a drummer first. I think that era of drumming is particularly interesting because there aren't rules about what's in a drum set. So the first generation of drummers, you can have a timpani, you can have a gong, you can have all sorts of things. So I think a lot of that, as stuff becomes standardized, you sometimes lose some of the freedom. So maybe one of the things I'm after is what you brought up, like whether it's style or anything, like going back to a time where there's not necessarily, it's a little bit more Wild West of what you can do and not do. One thing I love about Jelly Roll's music is just the use of multiple strains.
Out
of a march music. And I think as you get into later jazz, a lot, not always, but you often end up more in one form, say 132 bar form. And I've always been a big fan of just different sounds, modulations, changing dynamics, changing tempos, all this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. So what does this do in terms of numbers of people in your band? Like, I mean, you can play quartet, but do you have a preference for a number of people to be in your band? Like, how do you see that?
Something I learned during COVID was I'm a little less particular about that. I used to think the 3-horn, trombone, trumpet, saxophone, front line. And now I'm just interested. You go back to what do you need in the band? Just people who it feels like they understand. They're interested in the same mission.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've done that. During that time, I started doing gigs with just my sister and I. It was the first time since I was 8 years old, I was playing just with her.
Okay.
And I think out of that, there was sort of a rebirth.
Sure. All right. So, in keeping with that idea of trying different aspects of entertaining, is there one area of entertaining that you would like to develop more? Like, for instance, dance, dialogue, storytelling, I don't know, electronics, light shows, smoke, any of that stuff. Like, is there one thing you could say, oh man, if we develop this, that would be so cool, like a dance routine or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. So our bass player, Corbin's wife, is actually a choreographer. She gave us a short, 16 count step we did on one show, and it was so bad we decided we would never chase any of our interest again after that. But no dance. I like the basics. I go like storytelling. I mean, I think music, comedy, humor. I think all of that stuff that you can do before electronics is probably what's most interesting to me. The post-vaudevillian performers, I just think it's so uniquely American. It's so dynamic. I like that there's that room for error too. The thing about light shows or electronics, less room for error. I like the room to mess up.
Oh, okay, cool. And so does this mean do you often give your band members a dialogue prompt that you didn't rehearse, or so what do you think about those
Oh,
redbirds? What do you
yeah,
think about
I don't try to make people look. I think about it. I'm reading actually Terry Teachout's book now. I know Duke's 125th anniversary is coming up.
Yeah,
So I'm reading Terry Teachout's book, and he talks a lot. Obviously, that idea that Duke Ellington was always trying to highlight the best qualities of his musicians.
right,
And
right.
so I'm thinking the same kind of thing of, you brought up Alfonso Horn. Alfonso Horn's incredible dancer. Alfonso Horn's incredible singer. So those would be qualities I would call on him.
Okay.
For other qualities, for other skills, I would try to find the unique skills of those musicians. Ben Phlox can sing in his falsetto beautifully. So that's going to be something I would go to him, so on and so forth. Same principle. Always writing.
So,
for the band.
tell me what you think about Louis Jordan.
I liked Louis Jordan before I knew that his name. Before I knew him, I used to listen to Choo Choo Boogie and Saturday Night Fish Fry, all that stuff. But those arrangements are so tight.
They are.
And
they
those
are.
the jump.
And
go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, and incredibly funny. Oh my goodness,
Did you? Well, you obviously had been around New York a lot longer than I had. And did you have much interaction with musicians that had come out of that era, say of even like jump blues or anything? Did you get the chance to interact with those kind of people?
No, not really. But I kind of think there are more musicians involved in things like that than we would know in our present day generation. Like when I teach my students, they're interested in playing like Train, but when I tell them that Train walked the bar and he was an entertainer of many types of music, they actually can't believe it. I'm like, and I'm telling them, no, he used to play bop, do bop, do bop, and they just can't imagine him sounding like that, or like kind of just having a good time with that,
Why do you think it's so interesting? Because I remember when I first learned about that, like Train was involved with jump blues, or even like George Coleman and Harold Mayborn were playing with B.B. King. Like there's a lineage of people who could play modern music who did that. Why do you think a lot of young musicians, maybe it's hard to make that connection or to understand the importance, say, of that music?
Yeah, I think they see a person's sort of maybe a certain direction that they go in as the whole person, but people are multifaceted, and everybody's got something that they think is funny, and there are times for that. There are times to be serious. There are times to laugh. There's and since everybody has that, it's sort of like what little children do when they see their elementary school teacher in the supermarket. They go, "Mommy, that's my teacher. They're buying milk." And it's like, yeah, your teacher drinks milk. That's right. And they don't wear khakis on the weekends. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like people kind of lump you into a category because that's the only light that they've seen you in. But, there are plenty of other things that you do,
I've always found that really liberating. The more you can connect, that you can be a great artist and you weren't always like John Coltrane, Love Supreme, or Philly Joe Jones. Right. They didn't have quick hands. I love stories too. I mean, my favorite musician stories are always like, I'm interested in what they couldn't do. So like, I got this book because I'm reading it. Like Duke Ellington wasn't a great reader, so his band rehearsed differently than most other jazz bands. Like I think it's so fascinating that your deficiencies, how those can then become the things that make you stand out. And I found that with my band and myself as a performer, like, okay, there are other drummers. Wow, I'm never going to play brush just like Kenny Washington. I love Kenny Washington. Like I'm never that sound he gets, right? So I'm like, okay, so I can't beat that, but what can I do over here? Like, what can I do to be of value in music and in jazz, and where can I help make the world better? I mean, that's my thinking.
That's cool. Hey, man. So the audience that comes to your show on the 19th, should they expect you to play sets, in the traditional sense, how we play, 45-minute set, man, do you do sets, or do you just kind of play until it's a good time to stop and then take a break, or like how do you see it?
I like I have a little bit of like a Max Roach. Max Roach would always start with the same song or two. I know Cecil Bridgewater used to tell me you want to get the band really focused at the top and you set a tone, and then from there it's a conversation between us and the audience of where we need to go. So I try to lead I try to lead the ship, but to your point earlier about this audience, they need a ballad, or wow, they really don't like that, I'm gonna respect that. I don't have to tell them exactly what I want to do for them. It's not about me. Like, I really try to decenter myself when we're performing. I know it says my name and
right.
I'm there, but once we're there, it's like, okay, what does this audience need? You bring up, it's a Friday night. Okay, these people have been working all week. They've been waking up early. They've been this and that. It's like, okay, what can we do tonight? So they go home and go, wow, I feel better than I did before we were here at 8:00.
Uh-huh. Nice. Tell me something. So, obviously, you guys do dialogue and you do dancing and moving around. And are there additional tech needs for your group? Like, you guys, who's on mic? Does everybody have a clip-on mic or any of that kind of stuff?
I get a mic. That's an earned privilege, having a mic in the band, but now everyone has one. No, I think the most important thing is access to the audience. So the ability to go out into the audience, and it doesn't just mean go out into the audience to do a second line, but there's different ways you can use the space. I go back to the idea of like jazz is an improvisatory form. Okay, does that just mean it's improvisatory between the changes? Does that mean like where is the improvisation? How far can you push that? So It's different every night what our needs are.
Yeah. That idea of physical space and proximity, that is a big deal in music. And I remember when I was getting my doctorate, one of my cohort people, they were doing a study on that. And I noticed that like when I teach, people, they tend to, it's always the same thing. The guys, they sit on the back row against the wall. So I literally tend to like walk around the room, get right up in their mug, and get uncomfortably close and just talk to them. And it helps people to really relax because they realize, okay, this person's not going to attack me or whatever, he's going to, talk about music, And so, is this part of your philosophy too, in terms of going into the audience, like just standing there? Because you have a different experience when you stand next to somebody and you're playing a killer trombone. Yeah. You know what I mean? It means a lot more than standing way back on a stage playing through a microphone someplace,
Yeah, and I think I learned that what you're doing, I'm doing that. Maybe I'm definitely doing elements of that. I think I learned that from, you bring up the teaching, from education work, whether it's jazz for young people, concerts through Jazz Lincoln Center, and with my ensemble and the teaching we've done now. You have to break the ice some way. And so with kids, we would do certain things and go, oh, wait, why wouldn't I do that for adults? Like, why would that be something I only do with kids? And you start to understand that maybe a 45-year-old, they've never actually had a saxophone 3 feet away from them and heard that sound and experienced the thing that you feel every time you take out your instrument. They've never felt that horn in their face. So I think that really changed how we present our concerts.
Oh yeah. Yeah, for me, it actually was it was literally a trombone player. Like when I first got the idea, like, oh, this is this is like some really good stuff, this jazz thing. It was actually, I remember hearing a trombone section. They were playing the tune Autumn Leaves, and it was harmonized. And the lights went on. I thought, oh, that's what it is. Oh, I want to do that. You know?
Do you think has your teaching style, like obviously we talked about Train going from a R&B at times performer to later Train. Has your teaching style changed, evolved as you've now been in Indiana or when you were in Queens, or say even before that doing work? Like, how has your teaching style changed?
Oh yeah, my teaching style is very informal. You know, like we have big band in a circle. You know, I move around, I walk around, I get really close. I stand right next to them and hover over them. I want them to get used to making mistakes right in front of me. I want them to actually try new things in the concert right in front of me. I want them to do something. And in fact, before every concert, I tell them, don't do anything you've ever done before. Do something brand new on the stage, risk it all.
Boom. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Who do you think's the best? Who's been someone that you saw rehearse a big band, say whether maybe at Jazz Lincoln Center? Was there anyone who ever came and you said, wow, the way they rehearse, I got to take a piece of that. It was like so incredible.
Yeah. Well, that's on the tip of my tongue right now. That incredible Ron Carter, the jazz educator, who recently passed away. It's less than a month ago. Man, this guy, he was such an amazing educator. And I saw him during the early days because my high school band competed against his high school band.
Wow.
During his days at Lincoln High School. And man, if you had ever heard this band from Lincoln High School, this is the East St. Louis Lincoln High School band. They were like amazingly skilled. They were like a professional group, and they had a point to prove, you know, because they came out of like such a horrible poverty-stricken area. And somebody said, well, what do they have to prove something? Well, they had something to prove, you know, that they could come out with dignity. They could have fun. They could cheer each other on. They didn't have anything in terms of material wealth, but they had everything in terms of motivation and a sense of accomplishment, you know. And I saw that firsthand. I remember, and so we were in a competitive environment, and I remember our band actually beat them 1 year. And every year after that, they dusted us. And so they were just renowned, man. They were amazing. But yeah, Ron Carter was that guy.
Wow.
I do have one more question to ask you before we go on to the questions with Julia. My last question for you is, do you see yourself forging ahead with another genre, or do you not even think about those things? How do you see that?
You mean
in terms of what you're playing now? Do you see this as a musical theater jazz? Do you see it as jazz with more expression? Like, do you have a name for it, or you just see it as?
I call it joyful jazz, but maybe jazz to me is joyful. But for people who are new to jazz, I want them to joyful. And I would say, with joyful jazz, you bring up theater or all these other elements. To me, that's the generations of jazz that got me into the music, like the theatricality of Jimmy Lunsford's band, the humor in some Duke Ellington things that are in the music, even like Louis Armstrong. That's just, to me, that the jazz age, the swing era, I think that was all in the DNA of the music. You brought up Jelly Roll. So I don't think we're doing anything cutting edge as far. That's just the core of what the music is to me. And people hear different. Yeah. But the message I got from the founding fathers there was, this needs to be an experience that's larger than just the sounds. It's a room experience. It's everything.
That's awesome. All right. Well, Julia, I'm going to ask you to log back in or click back in or however you get here. She's going to magically appear on the screen, gentlemen. And she has, whoa, there she is. Okay, Julia, do we have any questions from our listening
We
audience?
do. We have a couple good questions. I want to remind people on Facebook, post it in the comments. You'll see a couple already there. And then if you're joining us over Vimeo, you can use the Q&A feature. So I have a question to start with, Sammy. On the 19th, are you going to play Meet Me in Memphis?
We can do that. Is that a request from someone?
For me, I
Oh,
like that
you will do
song.
that. All right, done.
Great, great. And for those of you who might have come in late, Sammy Miller and the congregation is joining us at the Center for the Performing Arts, the beautiful Palladium Concert Hall, on April 19th for an 8 o'clock performance. But in the morning, he's doing a performance for schools. We have free matinees for schools. We even pay for your buses to get you there. So that's my little quick commercial. But let me start with some of these questions. We've got one coming in on Vimeo. Sammy, could you tell us a little bit more about the playbook music tool that you have for music educators?
Sure. So, like I've been saying, education is a really big part of what we do, and for the last decade, we have been traveling. We'd go to different cities, and we'd always have an educational component. A lot of bands, but some bands, they go to a city, they play the concert, and like, let's get out. I was always trying to do something in the community before or after. And you'll see some surprises with some of the students we work with out in Indianapolis at the concert on the 19th. But out of that, I started seeing, as I'd visit different programs, we would do assemblies and kids would get excited about what we do. Oh, I want to do that. I want to play. But then I wasn't really leaving them with any tools of how to do anything with their excitement. And so I spent a lot of years kind of thinking through, brainstorming with the band about what would we wish we could do after we left an assembly or a concert or residency. And we wanted to build essentially an online conservatory for K-12 students who don't have access to private lessons. They don't know where to start to play along with records. And that was what the tool is to give both students and then teachers the tools to offer, offering teachers the tools to inspire lifelong musicians. So give other people the ability to learn music as we do in jazz, where they can learn something and then use those skills throughout life.
That's wonderful. I know you do a lot with music education and jazz education, so it's really appreciated. And again, you hinted there's going to be a fun surprise in the evening concert with some students, a lot of students that you've worked with here in Indiana. So that's it. We have a question from Rob on Facebook. He wants to know, and I'm curious about this as well. Is it hard to lead the group from behind a drum set?
I don't know anything else. And I would say we're a band. So at this point, there's so much unspoken. I could be from anywhere. There's so much that we all, I like that. A lot of great bands, the drummer is really important. And this is just a literal, like the drummer, I can help really dictate the shape of the songs with dynamics and all these types of things, maybe even more so than a trumpet player can or a saxophonist can. Sorry, Todd. But I mean, there's like, you have so much power from behind the drums.
Yeah.
Rather than oh, go ahead.
Let me jump in on that question too. So how do you sit in with other bands? Because I noticed you play your hi-hat on the right side as opposed to the left side.
They don't often invite me up because of that. But when they do, I've gotten pretty good at playing what's backwards. Todd's referring to, I'm left-handed, so I play the set backwards from how every other drummer plays. I can play the other way as well.
Oh, okay. So that's cool. Yeah. Julia, do you have any more?
I'm not seeing you perform live. And again, I'm excited for the 19th. But is it tough? Because typically when you see a band perform, the drummer is in the back, sometimes behind plexi. I'm sure for you, you're not behind plexi. But does the positioning of your group, because you lead the group and you're the drummer, are your instruments laid out a little bit differently than the typical?
No, I mean, on that note, what I'm interested in is sight lines. So maybe more so than other ensembles where there's a hierarchy we set up like a V so everyone can see everyone. That's different, and that's really I would say, as I think about it, that's what makes it a little different. We're also changing space. You'll see it at the concert, but it's not always one stationary setup. The horn players are moving to different spaces. Other than the upright piano, I mean, you'll see a lot of different visuals, a lot of different ways to see it.
I would think with improvisation, especially being able to see one another more clearly is got to be a plus.
Yeah, and Todd brought this up with how he rehearses his big band. You guys said you rehearse in a circle, right?
That's right. Yeah, that makes all the difference in the world. You know.
So I just thought, why not do that on stage where we can all see each other? And I like looking at the horn players, but looking at their butt the whole show, I'd rather be able to see their eyes.
That's right. Hey, man. So do you have any, on your recordings, are you making physical product, LPs and CDs, or are you strictly electronic?
No, we have CDs. We have LPs. We just put out a record last year, a big band version of it. Jazz Lincoln Center. We did a big band record live at Dizzy's at JazzTalk.
Oh, nice.
With a lot of the congregation songs exploded, but we'll have physical CDs and definitely vinyls too. I got a record.
Nice.
Will you have those at the Palladium on the 19th?
Definitely, 100%. Yeah.
We keep saying the 19th, April 19th.
Do people
right.
much vinyl out in Carmel? You
I just bought a record player a few months ago, and my favorite thing is going to the used record stores, and I got a couple gift cards for Christmas. I'm recollecting the albums I grew up with.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are buying vinyl here. Yeah.
Well, we have one more question, and remember to go ahead and type those questions in if you have them. This question is, and you kind of talked a little bit about your childhood. How was playing in a family band growing up? How did that influence your approach to music today?
That's a great question. No, that's a great question. We, I think the biggest thing is that we learned we had a lot of space to be terrible, right? When you're playing with your siblings, there's a lot of space to mess up, to have conflict. I can't tell you about the amount of times we had conflict. And I think that's healthy in music. When I visit a lot of schools or when I'm with people are so afraid to make errors, to mess up. They want perfection. And I've been messing up for so many years. It doesn't keep me up at night when I make errors. I make a lot of errors. I'm going to make errors on the 19th, I promise. So I would say that's a core of a tenet of what I believe is everyone needs to have space to be terrible. That's what I love about jazz. Is there's space to mess up. And then you get to get up the next song and try again.
That's right.
That's great. That's a great answer.
That's right.
Well, we have really appreciated you taking the time to chat with us tonight. And Todd, thank you again, our esteemed host of JazzTalk. So for everybody tuning in on YouTube, Vimeo, and Facebook, thank you for joining us tonight. We hope to see you soon at the Center for the Performing Arts for one of our wonderful shows in any of our venues. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Good night.
Bye. Good night.